Well, here we are. It is Sunday evening, and that means Vortex F1 Racing League going live again. This week, not the gold calendar, but the cylinder. Silver League. We have 18 drivers with us today, more than was available for gold. So they've sent me over to take a look at what goes on down here. T-Rex is our first, Dan W. Then Outlaw, Bloomstar, Squash Orca, Williams to Conquer, Idle North, Thomas, All Shot Down, Bruno, Whisper Flare, also known as Sphinx, Stone Cold, Hayes, Hijab, Shaggy, Iceman, Davlar, and Vikings. And of course it's qualifying, which means 17 laps of Formula cars going around the Australian circuit here at Melbourne. Usually roads during non-race times of the year, converted into a racetrack for this Grand Prix especially. And here we watch Vikings in the Ferrari, making his way through the first few turns. Of course, the outlap for these cars. Brand new tyres. They're giving 3 sets of soft tyres as opposed to mediums and hards. Everybody, as you can see, on that red-walled soft tyre for the fastest possible times. And Vikings was not actually the first one out of the pits. It was Dan W. in the Visa Cash App Racing Bulls car, that very, very beautifully pink liveried car. It was an exception livery for Miami in 2025. But having been added to the game, it can be used on any track. We'll go through his point of view as he's going through the final third of this lap, the final sector. We'll follow his first lap around. And we'll see what the initial time is. Now, foot flat to the floor for the starting straight. As the timing line is exactly there. You'll see the timer at the bottom starts going. This lap will count as long as all 4 wheels remain on track. The track limits here are designated by those yellow lines at the side of the track instead of the usual white lines in other circuits across the world. Now, turn 3, clipping that inside curb, hanging to the right of the track for this wide left-hander of turn 4. Turn 5, very well handled. Now turn 6, a very quick right-hander. Careful not to go too wide there because there's gravel outside those track limits. And gravel cannot be good for the car. So the lap going nice and smoothly so far for Dan W. Now the fast chicane of turn 9 and 10. The rear of the car sliding out a little bit there. Very, very anxious over the curbs. But well maintained. And again, gravel on the exit of that curb. So going into the corner with just that little bit too much speed can be punished. Now, we're at 1 minute 10 seconds. And now we're back on that starting straight. And we'll see what time it is. Across the line, it's a 1 minute 17.615. We go next to T-Rex. And the green Aston Martin as Vikings absolutely smashes that time from Dan W with a 16.7. Bloomstar going provisionally third with a 1 minute 18. And Shaggy as a 1 minute 16.8. Of course, all of these very much provisionally. Sphinx in P4 with a 1 minute 17.7. And Thomas with a 16.9. Now third. William going 19th. T-Rex 17.5 to go fourth. Times now tumbling in for the first round of qualifying laps. I believe there may have been a mistake in that 1 minute 19.1 lap from Williams. Idle North 118.5. And so far, Shaggy, the closest one to Vikings' time. It was set second of all, but it remains top after 9 drivers have done their laps. There are only 3 more in the middle of laps now. Hayes and Bruno being one of them. Some of them at least. And Bruno. And the white Haas car. The Haas F1. It's a personal best and a session best in Sector 2. Over the line, what can he do? That is 6th. It looked very good in the second sector. You can see the colours. Yellow indicating less than optimal. Not even a personal best. Purple indicating best of the session and of the rest of the drivers. So far, Davlar was on a lap, but has found himself next to the wall, going quite slowly. So that won't be him. And his best attempt. Hayes now. Through Sector 2, you can see Purple again. Slowing down. Turn 13. And back up on the throttle. And flat out for the same straight. What can the second McLaren do? The challenge pole. He does indeed get very close. Second place provisionally for him. Hayes with a 16.787 is 0.08 of a second away from that provisional top spot. And of course, everybody wants to start at the front. Now, towards the back, we have two drivers yet to put in laps who are on out laps. We're going to be going for fast laps soon. So, of course, not timing these ones, as they're used to prepare not only the drivers mentally, but get some temperature into these tyres, into the brakes, so they work as expected when needed. And here it is. Iceman's attempt now. He's left himself later than the rest of them. He's got some clean air ahead of him. Flowing into turn 1. Turns in nice and early to get himself straightened out for turn 2. Now, very harsh braking for turn 3. Might not look like it, but that's very slow for an F1 car, down to 100k an hour. Where just now we're on 293 before braking for turn 6. And you can see almost over the track limits there, but well held. The driver's pushing everything as far as they can get away with, sometimes even further. And 0.3 faster through Sector 2 goes Hijab on Viking. So this looks like, if it stays at this pace, this will be a top time. Now the final sector. It's challenged the drivers before. A very smooth line. Through turn 14, now back on the throttle. Maybe some time left on the table, but it should overall be good enough. Yes, it is. 0.2 faster than Vikings to take that provisional pole position away. It's now some competition for that Ferrari up front. Stone Cold, another driver. So far, not on the timing sheets with anything other than his name. The second Ferrari. Given his chance. He's done what he could on the track. What will it show on paper? And it's P10. 10th place. 17.9 for Stone Cold. It's himself. Only one place away from the middle. Which we now try and work out who is on a fast lap as Shaggy from 4th place has gone straight back out for a fast lap. And it's very close to Hijab's new time. Just 0.04 away. It was a session best in Sector 1, a personal best in Sector 2. Now Ascari. Every turn given names. Australia, not given the most original. Given names after previous champions. Turn 14, simply named Turn 14. And over the line. Has Shaggy done it? Yes, he has. Another 10.5 improvement. And a new pole once again. Two drivers finishing laps, two drivers taking the provisional lead. What about Thomas? The Red Bull. Red Bull, of course, also being an energy drink. But brings speed to the track as well. As Thomas takes the car over the timing line for 4th place. Does improve, but not by enough to trouble those top drivers. 16.7 for him. And he'll now find his way back into the pits. As you can see at the track map in the bottom right, drivers all across the track now. Some on fast laps, some on their way in, some still preparing. But now, the benchmark for a fast lap has improved, of course. Shaggy, with that 16.4, made an undeniable mark. Sphinx comes in, and Hayes begins his next attempt. Braking for turn 3. The line struggling there, you could see on the green at the bottom. That's the throttle input, of course. It had to drop again. A very significant release there where it wouldn't ideally have done so. And of course, all moments where you have to release this time where you're not gaining speed. It's a purple sector 1 though still. Compared to Shaggy, it is still a better first third. And of course, a personal best. And still a 10th faster through the second sector. So there is still fight in this McLaren. Now turn 14. Decides the exit speed onto this straight. And over the line, it's not quite good enough. That final sector, just too difficult for him to maintain that same pace. A 16.674 though does leave him in third, which is still nothing to be sniffed at. But Vikings does a 16.56 to take it away, only seconds after it's made. So down to fourth for Hayes. And across the track, time shifting, and an invalid lap so far for Davlar now. Too many tyres off the track limits. It will not be counted. And Williams letting drivers by. 119.0 currently his best attempt. The Vikings on his way in, while Hijab, the man who took pole position, only to be beaten seconds later as well. Now going for another outlap. His final attempt, of course. They're only given 3 sets of soft tyres. And once they've been used for a lap or 2, they can no longer hold up that pace. And you can see how slowly and gently he's taking it. Just to make sure he doesn't overwear them before their best. And there you go, you can see some slight weaving down the straight as the turning is friction. Friction is heat, and heat is grip, and that is the name of the game when it comes to these slick tyres. You'll notice no treads whatsoever. Those are for wet conditions. Completely slick with as much rubber contacting the tarmac as possible. And now, the DRS open, you can see that rear wing that shuts right about now. There you go, you can see it flap down. As some extra top speed comes from the effect that's usually only given within 1 second when you're racing. As the game hasn't quite registered that this lap might not be an outlap. Even though it looks very much like he's pushing. EA once again known for making amazing games. There we go. Now it's caught up. 500ths faster than Shaggy in the first sector. Now, flat out for this back section. DRS open once again. You can see the rear wing shutting now for this fast chicane. Turns 9 and 10, a 10th faster through the second sector. Not his personal best at all. In fact, he's done better. But it can still be best. Scary, turn 11. The final sector will decide it. as he comes into the pits. It looked a very, very strong lap indeed. Very unfortunate that the game seemed to not quite register it as a lap. And so, most drivers now preparing to go out for their final attempt. Just over 2 minutes remain in the session. T-Rex may be on one of his own now. But he's a second or so adrift. It may just be a relatively fast outlap, or maybe a second warm-up. But Idle North, the lime green, kicks Sauber. Very gentle on throttle, you can see. Also doing a second warm-up lap to try and burn off as much fuel as possible. Of course, a litre of fuel accounts for about 0.03 of a second. And in qualifying, 0.03 of a second, well, let's just take a look at Hijab and Vikings. So close together that 0.03 of a second would change their positions. So, double warm-up laps being chosen for many drivers here, but one of them is not Vikings, who's now on the back straight. Start straight, sorry. And here we go, his final attempt. Turning in very early for turn 1. Very wide, looked like tyres may just have gone off, but he may have maintained it. Looks like he's still driving like he has. We'll see when the sector times come in. It's in fact invalid. I wasn't wrong. Unfortunately, all 4 tyres went off the track in that second turn. So we'll pay more attention to Shaggy, our current provisional pole holder, who has improved by 1/10 of a half this sector alone. In fact, 0.2 when it comes to sector 2. While that time passes in the blink of an eye, it's just almost impossible to gain. And now, to bring it home, an improved lap. He's already on the top. But with 17 seconds remaining, he crosses the line once more. And now, 0.3 of improvement. That's a 16.182. Beautifully done from the V-Carb driver. That's, of course, V's a cash up Red Bull. Now, as long as you start your lap before that time ends, you don't check the checkered flag. We've seen some drivers finish their sessions now. Vikings, T-Rex, Idle North, now Bruno, Squash and Outlaw, and Iceman all finishing their sessions. Thomas Genghis going second, taking the checkered flag now with a 16.2. Any driver who started before the timer ended does get to finish. Hayes, invalid. What about these drivers towards the midfield? Davlar coming into the pits. Didn't believe in himself to improve. And now Sphinx, the Mercedes, also opting for the pit lane. Bloomstar, most likely out of fuel. It does look like he might just be out of fuel at this stage. Running in low fuel mode, also decides to opt for that pit lane. Which means the final driver that we're waiting for is Shaggy, who's made his mark. He's got his pole position, and in he comes to prepare the car for the race. And that is our starting order. We'll take another look in a second when we can see the full leaderboard when the session's over. And there we go. So, our qualifying has given us now our race starting order for the Australian Grand Prix. Shaggy up front. Thomas just behind him will be to his right. Hijab in third, followed by Vikings, then Hayes and Dan W in 5th and 6th. T-Rex made it to 7th. Sphinx in 8th. Davlar 9th. North 10th. Bruno in 11th. Bloomstar in 12th. Stone Cold 13th. Squash Orca 14th. Williams 15th. Nobody's Outlaw 16th. The final 3 didn't quite get laps done, but they'll still start towards the back. That will be how our race starts. But of course, around Australia, anything can happen. And it very well may not be how this race ends. We may see some crashes, though hopefully not, for the sake of the drivers. We'll be given just a few minutes now for the drivers to prepare, maybe change their setups slightly while we get to look at this beautiful pit lane. The spare front wings out by the garages with the pit guns waiting, ready for when drivers need to change their tyres. And speaking of changing tyres, the drivers will decide now what they want to start on. Soft, medium or hard. And given that most drivers will have used up all of their soft tyres in the start of qualifying or throughout qualifying, it'll be a choice between medium and hard. And as you can imagine, medium won't last as long, but hard will take longer to come into their own and will be slower, at least for the start. And so, the tyre choice will make a difference in pace at the start of this race. Of course, those on the mediums can expect their first stint to be that's fastest. Whereas those who start on the hards going for the long run, going for some late race pace. And we'll have to see if a one-stop strategy is viable around here. Tyres do degrade quite quickly. If you go too long, you risk a puncture. So ideally, we wouldn't have to stay out on a set of tyres for too long. But for some, that may mean going on an extra set of mediums or hards. We'll be readying up any minute soon. In fact, we're going in 1 minute precisely. Now, any minute, the drivers waiting for those 5 red lights. They come on one by one. They go out together, and that will signal our race begin. And off the start here, that fast right-hander of turn 1 that turns into a left-hander for turn 2 can see quite some carnage. So we'll keep an eye. Make sure everyone at least tries to behave. And here we go. There we are. That's 3, 4, now 5 red lights. They go out very quickly, and away we go. It's Shaggy, leading us away after earning that pole position. Into turn 1, you can see cars already going side by side. We've got through it relatively safely. Up at the front. Some EA lag going on for sure here. As here we are. Shaggy does maintain the lead. Of course, Stone Cold, for some reason, EA thinks is up at the front. But there we go. Down in 13th. Shaggy, the leading Hijab. And this would usually be a DRS zone, where the rear wings would open. We'd get a speed boost within a second, but it's not available on this first lap. Hijab, very close to Shaggy though, has a much better run out of the chicane, but has instead decided to bide his time, wait for DRS to be open, to make that overtake. You can see cars so close together at this stage in the race. And I believe, never mind, we do not have damage. That front wing is just very black, and it looked like it was missing a section. And now, as we cross the timing line here, DRS enabled, Shaggy taking the fastest lap. But it'll be up to Hijab to make a move now. The Williams look to the inside of turn 3, backed out, will continue in single file. Is anybody going to go for it here? Not quite yet. And we'll quickly take a look at these tyres. Mostly mediums. We've got some hard runners towards the middle. Bloom Star, Stone Cold, and All Shot Down. But it's now Hijab with the DRS. Flies past Shaggy. Thomas catching up very similarly. And of course, around this circuit, there's a double DRS zone, which means there's 2 DRS points. And Hayes was gaining very significantly on Vikings, who's gone deep into the gravel. Goes the Ferrari, loses 2, 3, 4, 5 positions. Trying to defend. It looked like Hayes was going to go to his inside. He didn't. But in the name of defense, Vikings broke too late. Went too deep. Gone too far. Hijab now fastest lap from the front. And T-Rex ever so close to Dan W. The pink liveried V-Carb finding its rival. That beautiful gloss pink visible from so far behind. And up at the front, Hijab has 30% left on that battery. The electric power, not as available for him as it is for Shaggy, who now has DRS himself. The rear wings open and close in. There's now 3 tenths between the two of them. With another DRS zone here, rear wing open again. But no overtake to be made. What about further back? Is anybody else thinking of it? Not quite yet. So, the medium tyres. Oh. There we go. Idle North lost some positions there. The medium tyres treating the front run as well. As we're now 3 laps in. And Hijab defended very well that time around. But this time, you have to wonder, with only 5% left in the battery, is there enough? Of course, it'll recharge in the braking. But Shaggy doesn't seem like he's giving up. And especially not this soon. And here we are again. 60%. And Hayes has got visited off track too many times, 3 times in fact, gets a 3-second penalty, which will be applied to the end, which means the drivers behind him gain those positions automatically if they're within that time. And Shaggy now 4 tenths behind, but struggling through the chicane. The rear of the car sliding. Lost the time that he'd gained, but this time, Hayes having a look to the outside. Side by side go the Red Bull and the McLaren. The McLaren has to go behind. Broke too early, comparatively. And despite all his work there, the overtake was well defended. And now Thomas is 1.8 seconds behind Shaggy, which means no DRS for him. And that lack of a speed boost will make it even more difficult for him to defend. And so many cars so close together in the midfield. Sphinx looking to the inside of T-Rex, but ultimately too far behind. And now, it's Thomas that has to worry, as DRS is active for the McLaren. And there's no battery left for either of them. At the very last minute, Hayes. Oh, very close, but again, no move for him. Thomas went wide on the exit of that chicane. And this might be the chance. Hayes, again to the outside. Thomas defending the inside. Stays as is. Of course, there's DRS again down the main straight. Hayes, again, scaring Thomas by looking to the inside last minute, filling his wing mirrors. But hasn't quite been able to make a move stick quite yet. It's being very well defended by the Red Bull. And bashing the wall is Hayes. Very lucky he got away without any damage there. And now DRS again. This time, is he making it stick? No. He broke late. He was given the space by Thomas. But has he preferred to go in the second DRS zone? He's so close, around the outside now. We had this last lap, and this time, he finds himself on the curb, still side by side. And didn't quite get the run he needed. And it's seeming very, very difficult for Hayes to make any progress here. But the midfield is now ever so close. Davlar has caught up to Hayes. Now it's a 3-way fight. Of course, going side by side with cars means you're not going on the optimal line and you lose time compared to the cars behind. And this time, Hayes, if he doesn't make a move, he's going to be under pressure from behind. He has to do something round the outside this time. Does the McLaren finally make it stick? Yes, he does, into the chicane. And Shaggy, who was very close in second, has now got himself that 3-second track limits penalty. Davlar finding himself overtaken now by Dan W. And side by side, the Mercedes of Sphinx. Now trying to defend this Ferrari. But Shaggy into the pits. I wonder what's going on with this V-Carb. Maybe 7 laps on these medium tyres is just too many. It looks that way, no front wing change. Goes straight to the hard tyres, which means he's chosen for himself a two-stop strategy. And Shaggy's not the only one who's done that. Davlar came in, did the same, so did Thomas. So, Hijab now, 4 seconds ahead of second place. Because, of course, that's Hayes, who just overtook and has made his way to second. The question is, what pit strategy are we going to see from the rest of the field? Because it's become very clear that some drivers don't think they can take the mediums long enough to go for one stop. The mediums would need to last around 4 more laps to make it possible. And there's a spin. Hayes finds himself into the wall. We saw it there on the exit of the chicane. Lost control of the rear. Too much steering for too much speed. And down into 6th he goes. He fought so long for second place. And out of nowhere, one mistake. Another fight for him. Dan W. Now pitting. 7 laps on the mediums, too much for him too. While Hijab and Sphinx and Vikings stay out at the front. And Hayes comes in for some new hard tyres. Hayes, one of the reasons that slide may have happened may be because of that loss of grip from dead tyres. They did change his front wing as well, which means he got some minor damage from bashing it into the wall there. And Davlar on the inside have all shot down into turn 1. The Haas survives, but we've had some cars off track now. Thomas getting a 10-second penalty for a severe collision with all shot down. Very significant there as Vikings finds his way up on Sphinx. DRS handing him an opportunity round the outside. But not good enough. Again, it's only a boost. It's not a free pass. He can get him side by side under braking. But that's different than getting past as T-Rex also catches up. The 3 cars ever so close. They'll have to be careful not to bump into each other. Though we've seen some of that already. Stavlar and Dan W. side by side through a very similar place. Drivers on brand new hard tyres as Vikings and Sphinx again going at it, but this time Sphinx compromised his line too much. Or Vikings did, sorry. And now the Mercedes leads in second. T-Rex gets a 3-second time penalty for cutting that corner just too significantly. Stays in third, tried to stick his nose in and take advantage. Shaggy went off the track there in turn 4, down to 10th. Gravel on the tyres does not help the fact that they are brand new. Even worse, Vikings now not letting up. The Ferrari staying within this Mercedes tail. If you've ever played Mario Kart, you've heard of a slipstream. And that does exist here. If you're close enough to the car ahead, there's a small time advantage, as you don't have to deal with all the turbulent air. You don't have to deal with any fresh air. There's simply less air. And while Hijab extends his lead up at front by nearly 9 seconds now, the fight for second is well underway. Stone cold, 9 laps on the hard tyres, comes into the pits. A little too early for that compound, I'd say. With no front wing replacement. He may just struggle later on if that's his only set. Of course, he may be going for a hard, medium, hard strategy. But you can see these drivers up the front taking the mediums for 10 laps, devoting themselves to a one-stop, though at this point they'll be losing significantly in terms of pace compared to those on new tyres. DRS open for Vikings. We saw him sliding through that first sector. as these tyres become a handful. And T-Rex likes the look of an overtake here. You can see how slowly, compared to how they used to go through these corners in qualifying, they're having to go. Hijab, on lap 11, or at least for the start of lap 11, has come into the pits. Now the hard tyres will have to go for 18 laps if he wants to do a one-stop. We will have to see. But our race leader takes himself into the pits and thereby will come out in some traffic. He'll come out right behind Shaggy, the driver he was leading before he came into the pits. But now his tyres being 4 laps older will mean he'll have some extra pace in there. And T-Rex and Viking staying out makes them the leading train. But most likely only for this lap. Dan W finds himself so close to the Aston Martin of Bloomstar. 8 laps tyre advantage compared to him. Which means hopefully this isn't too difficult. With tyres being 8 laps newer, there we go. The entry onto the straight with more grip, more exit speed, and that's his. Hijab now, with those new tyres, has already found his way past Shaggy. And into 4th goes our ex-race leader. Side by side goes Squash Orca and Dan W. The Mercedes of Squash Orca coming out on top there. But again, cars behind always trying to take advantage. And Dan W has newer tyres. There we go. Vikings and Thomas into the pits. And Dan W. There we go. A very late move, but a clean one in fact. And Bloomstar finding his way around Squash Orca too. Sphinx gets a 3-second time penalty. Very difficult to avoid, in fact, around this track. It's so technical. And even there, another corner cutting warning for Sphinx. You can get more than 1 3-second penalty. And they do stack, so be careful. And now Hijab has found his way through the field entirely. A little bit of bumping with Idle North. But with 11 laps, newer tyres. This time around, I don't know how Idle North will do. Hangs it round the outside, maintains it. But doesn't quite have the same grip on the exit. And does lose the position. T-Rex down in 11th. Gets a 3-second penalty. We'll check now for the penalties. T-Rex is now on 6 seconds. Shaggy contending with Idle North down the main straight. Lots of cars now taking advantage of their newer tyres. Shaggy muscles through on Idle North. And Outlaw comes into the pits. 12 laps on those mediums. Sets himself up for a great one-stop strategy. And Sphinx, 3/10 behind the car of Hayes. Hayes dipping some grass onto that front right tyre there. With DRS. If any time is good, now or never for the Mercedes round the outside. Some bumping and off goes the McLaren into the wall. And there goes the front wing, fully retired. That crash absolutely fatal for Hayes, who found himself pushed just a bit wide through the chicane. Side by side there is always dangerous, and we have a safety car. There goes the McLaren. Unfortunately, our first DNF of the race. Very unfortunate. But now that every car is required to obey a speed limit for the sake of what would be safety, everybody's coming into the pits to take advantage. Because you'd lose less time. And now Dan W, following the Aston Martin safety car. Now we'll have to wait for the cars to all bunch up again before we get racing. So, brand new tyres for most under this safety car. You can see now, any time advantage you may have gained before the safety car neutralized. Any positions you've gained, however, preserved. We're just waiting for a few stragglers to catch up to the back before we can go racing again. We will go round another lap under this safety car. Of course, that crash will leave Sphinx wondering, could he have done anything differently? And the stewards will surely make a ruling on that when the race is over. Maybe a penalty, maybe not. We have 12 more laps, and 11 laps, most likely. There we go. As everybody has caught up, which means the safety car will go in this lap. We'll get back to full speed racing. This time, everyone will be a little bit more desperate. Safety car has disorganized the pack quite significantly. Here we go, the safety car will be coming in. And you'll see very similar things. To what we saw on the formation lap, where these tyres need to be warmed up. Now, the way this works is, safety car comes in, nobody is allowed to overtake until Dan W goes full throttle. Nobody's allowed to overtake till the timing line, and we have to maintain this speed. Until any minute now, Dan W will put pedal to the metal and send us going away. There we go. Full speed once again, accelerating all the way back up. He definitely caught Sphinx by surprise, and as a result, Vikings takes advantage of very quick, early overtake down the main straight for the Ferrari. Lets it back. I believe he did it too early before the timing line. Small collision there, sends him sliding. He overtook too early. And now Stone Cold and T-Rex. Stone Cold down the inside, another crash into the wall. Turn 3. Shaggy off the track now. A yellow flag through Sector 1, warning everybody, be careful. And, oh my goodness. Another crash off the back of the safety car. Not quite fatal yet. 3 wide, 3 cars going into the next turn. Another piece of damage for the front wing. I'm seeing damage galore now. T-Rex bumping into Sphinx and into the wall. The safety car sending carnage into this race. The Sphinx goes wide. Idle North takes advantage. And we'll have to take a look now at who is missing some of their front wing. This Aston Martin Bloomstar is for sure. The front wing end plate, the bit that sticks up at the end, missing for him. We'll see now. He'll change for a new front wing altogether before he can come back out. Iceman goes off the track in turn 1. Tries to safely rejoin. As up ahead, Sphinx and Squash Orca swapping around. Now T-Rex. Does he have damage? No damage on the Aston Martin of T-Rex. And Vikings with DRS now. No battery remaining, but so much more speed into turn 11 down the inside. And has it before the middle of that turn. So, some cars are okay. Some have had to come in for some repairs. Absolute chaos. And Davla gets a 3-second penalty now. From just behind Stone Cold. And Hijab, who was leading so comfortably before the safety car, is now stuck behind Vikings, of course. 2 laps tire advantage. It was horribly timed for Hijab. He pitted, and then the safety car came out. And everybody else was given a very, very easy pit stop. And now, round the outside, that looked a lot easier than it should have. Vikings, ultimately, sent down to P3. Now 9 more laps. And hopefully, 9 cleaner laps than the one after that safety car. But here, Davlar taking advantage of the second DRS zone round the outside. Almost some tyre banging there. The Ferrari brakes late. Very cleanly done by them. Now all shot down. Sees Stone Cold take his way into the pit lane. And Sphinx retires. He retired of choice in the pit lane. It was not a crash, but it is our second DNF. He chose to retire the car, maybe after an issue. And Davlar, what's happened to Davlar? He's crashed in the wall on the right. I didn't catch it. But there is a Haas. Or there was a Haas. Bugging out on the right side of that track. Something happened to him. And it's always when I pay attention to someone else. And we have a second safety car. Oh my goodness. Now this presents an interesting choice. To pit or not to pit. We'll see now if the drivers at the front choose to. Dan W does. Hijab stays out. So does Vikings. So does T-Rex. Idle North, though, comes straight in. Squash Orca staying out. Thomas staying out. Bruno, all shot down, staying out. Outlaw coming in. So does Iceman. Of course, forced to go slowly under the safety car. Stone Cold stays out himself, having just been on 0 lap old tires. Bloomstar comes in. And what about Shaggy? He comes in as well. Okay, so a mix of stoppers and non-stoppers for this safety car. And Bloomstar has gone onto soft tires. With 8 laps remaining, he's gambling that the soft tires will last long enough, while the rest are staying out on these 8 lap, 10 lap, 7 lap, 9 lap old hards. And you wonder, will they last long enough? And will they be fast enough to stave off the attack of those who are now on fresh rubber? As the pack will bunch back up. We're going to find an all-out brawl for those top positions. Oh, and one more surprise pit stop is Squash Orca. Mercedes. Coming in on the second lap of the safety car. That puts him down to 13th. New tyres, but at what cost? So, this time around, should be the final time we'll see the safety car. As it should announce any second now that it'll be coming back in. There we go. We will not be doomed to one more lap of Hot Wheels staying as no overtaking. And this time it'll be Hijab. Everyone obeying his speed. Now the safety car is on its way into the pits. And it'll be any minute now. But it'll be all up to him when we go. Still nice and slow, slowing all the way down the pack. You wouldn't feel like this is 60 miles an hour, but it is. As Bloomstar gets a 10-second penalty for a collision, and now we're going halfway down the straight. Hijab, pedal to the metal. As Nobody's Outlaw passes Iceman. Iceman having had a collision off the rip. And Bloomstar finding himself off track. He overtook for a second, but Iceman, the Alpine, now missing a bit of that front wing. You can see the front left missing that end plate, which will impact performance quite a lot. Dan W. And similarly to when the race started, there's no DRS for one lap after a safety car. This would usually be an easy overtake, but this time we're burning the battery, and it is not enough. Bruno is on 12-lap-old hard tyres. He stayed out with the front of the pack, and Dan W. is on these fresh mediums. He wants to storm through the field as soon as possible. No late-minute dive into turn 13 as I thought there'd be. But now's his chance. Turn 14 to the inside. Very well done. DRS now enabled. Which means idle north through on all shot down before turn 1. Stone Cold in the meanwhile. Brand new mediums. Almost went for a very late lunge into that spot. All these people on new tyres trying to fend their way forward. And it's Dan W, which is the furthest forward of them all. He's within DRS range of Thomas already. And all he's doing is gaining these deltas, coming down. And up at the front, we have a three-way fight for the lead. But of course, all this fighting can only bring Dan closer. Every single time you fight, you're losing time. And now Dan can see them all as they go down the straight. They're all on 11, 13 lap old hard tyres. If Dan catches up, is there much they'll be able to do, or have they been beaten on strategy? Now 2/10 between them. You have to wonder, how will they defend? A great run through turn 6 from Dan. And now DRS. But not enough top speed for Dan. You have to wonder, maybe this is a setup issue. Before the race, drivers can choose their downforce levels on a scale of 1 to 50 for each of their wings, front and rear. Oh, Outlaw going off the track there, as did Bloomstar. The Aston Martin having an excursion into the gravel, and Outlaw to the inside, goes very deep into the gravel himself, spins a slight amount and hits Williams. Williams now missing that front left end plate also. Some carnage going on there. Dan W forced to stay behind Thomas with 2 laps remaining and 4 places to gain. Maybe, as I was saying, the downforce levels, maybe if Dan W's gone too high on those wings, then the downforce is so high that the top speed is limited down these straights. Then Thomas tapping the wall on the exit there. When will his chance be? It might just be any minute now. As he inches closer, but no. It was 1/10 of a second between them, 0.1. And yet not good enough. All shot down now, around the outside of the Ferrari of Stone Cold. Up to P9 goes the Williams. And so very close together is the front of the pack now. The Vikings has taken the lead off Hijab. But how long for, as we once again reach another DRS zone? The person at the front of this pack will not have it. As they start wishing that straight was just slightly longer. Each of them waiting for their moment to pounce. And with a lap and a half remaining, soon they'll start going at any opportunity. Stone Cold and All Shot down together in turn 3. Some wheel bumping. The Ferrari winning out though. Back up front. DRS for Hijab. Takes him around the Ferrari. And T-Rex unable to get in on the action. And Dan W still unable to get past Thomas. Something about that Red Bull. I believe it might be set up, but it's incredibly difficult to get around. And Dan W goes very wide, turn 12, doesn't quite brake correctly. We have a yellow flag for a V-carb. That's what's happened there. I think it was the other Williams have all shot down. Or something. There was a yellow flag temporarily. Glad everyone is fine. And Hijab holds the lead. Oh, that was the problem. There's a Red Bull in the middle of the track. Outlaw finds himself spun around. Comes back to it though. And now, this is where Hijab was vulnerable. This DRS zone. Vikings does close in. And Dan W's hunt has been stalled by Thomas. And it's now up to these top 3. Vikings. He's used everything available. But ultimately, both him and T-Rex have time penalties to their name, which means Hijab, as we reach the final straight, and for the final time crosses that start-finish line, takes the checkered flag and the victory with it. Thomas takes second place after penalties. Dan W takes 4th, with Vikings taking the final podium position. T-Rex in 5th, Bruno took 6th, Idle North in 7th, Shaggy 8th, Stone Cold 9th, All Shot Down 10th, Squash Orca 11th, Bloomstar 12th, now William in 13th, followed by Iceman. But of course, Williams get given 12th after Bloomstar's penalties. And finally, Outlaw across the line, had a spin towards the end, but still finished, and that is respectable. And after it all, when I said the finishing order might not be the same as the start, I was not wrong. And there's our podium. Our race winner, of course, Hijab. Fastest lap went to Dan. Stone Cold got driver of the day. Dan also most overtakes in Bruno. Cleanest driver, least incidents. Dan W going from 6th to 4th. Very impressive, but Bruno, 11th to 6th. Points positions begin at 10th. So to go from completely out of it all the way up to 6th. Very admirable. Hijab from 3rd took the win. So a great race altogether. Here's your finishing order. Of course, we had a few retirements. But after it all, it was fun. And we'll see you next week at a different circuit.